welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for another fabulous episode with an incredible guest again today. And please welcome the wonderful Jennifer Hill. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm super excited.
It's so amazing to have you on the show. And Jennifer and I have actually known each other for quite a number of years and in different versions of ourselves as we've evolved along the way, definitely evolved. For those of you that aren't aware of Jennifer, or Jen as she likes to be called, she is this incredible project management specialist, motivational speaker, soon to be author, an all-round fascinating and incredible woman who, when she sets her mind to something, goes out and does it. But Jen, please explain to people and give people a little bit more information about who you are and how you came to be doing the incredible things that you do.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this. It's quite a long, drawn-out story. As you can hear from my accent, I'm from overseas. So my background is that I was born and raised in the state of Maine, which is on the East Coast and the most northeast state in the country. It has over 5,000 lakes and some fantastic industries around lots of logging, lots of tourism, and lobsters, really good lobsters. But I'm an only child from a family of very melting pot of families. My mom and stepdad actually used to be carnies. So carnies is a term, it's a North American slang for someone who follows around carnivals or agricultural shows. So I was raised with them away a lot. I was raised on the road with them a lot. And there's two kinds of carnies. There's the ones that go with the ride companies and are paid by the ride companies and like sell the tickets. And then there's the independent ones. And my family were independent. They would choose what shows they wanted to go to, how long they would be there. They made all their own stands that they traveled around in. My mother was a very talented sign writer, and my stepfather could pretty much fix anything. So there was always a lot going on in my family. And I had the privilege to see a lot of the United States growing up and work alongside them. We were always working. And on the flip side of that is my dad. He's a singer, he's an actor, and they split up because he's gay. And so he repartnered. He's been with his partner as long as my mom's been with her husband. But of course, because the laws didn't allow legalized gay marriage, they weren't able to marry until much later. So I have this wonderful, enigmatic, eccentric family of origin. And I always say they're the most interesting thing about me, quite frankly.
Well, with that incredible and interesting background, you know, as a carny and doing the incredible things that you must have done, you would have quite a different approach to what success might mean for you. So what do you think success means to you now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's so interesting because watching my family work so hard and working alongside them, success does really mean different things to different people. And so, I didn't have that traditional, maybe suburban upbringing, or I wasn't sent away to boarding school. I don't have any experience or background in that way. But what I did really witness was my family working very hard physically, creating an amazing legacy in some ways. So the egg roll and fried rice stand that they started that was called Strong Brothers Egg Rolls, and they've actually now gifted it to their local church. So the church now runs that on an annual basis. It's taught the same recipes and the same methodology, and it's their main fundraising event for the church every year. So that is really special that they were able to create and iterate that and then pass it on. But I think for me, what I saw my family chasing after was not so much money, it really was fulfillment. So what I've come to realize about myself and my definition of success is autonomy is very high on my value list. Autonomy, personal, creative, and financial autonomy. And it's this wonderful thing that in my very conventional older working life, every boss I've ever had has benefited from my entrepreneurial background because I work as if I'm working in my own business. And if I'm given the autonomy to get something done, I'm given a project, I'm given an outcome they want to achieve, they leave me alone and I make it happen. Flexibility is also very much in my value system and how I measure success. Am I able to work and look after my family? Am I able to prioritize my health and my job? I really believe that you don't have to settle and that you don't have to miss out on anything. You really should have the flexibility to have it all if that's what you want. And finally, productivity is very important to me. I don't like busy work. I don't like work that wastes time. I like being productive, having a useful quality output, engagement, interaction. And I do my work with passion. I think you can be productive and passionate. There's no reason I can't bring this level of passion to what I do. And it's why I do so many different things now and enjoy them all so immensely. I sell isogenics products because I believe in them. I work as a project manager for a technology startup. I have a consulting business, and I work with predominantly women who are in micro businesses who need support around strategy or operational management. And I do that work pro bono for the most part because I love it so much. And as you mentioned, I'm really excited to have the energy to have been working on a book that will very, very soon be released. And I do all those things with a great deal of passion.
Wow, what an incredible and very, very extensive list of what success means to you there, and the whole everything from that autonomy where you're able to be given a task or given an activity and then being able to go away and do that, having that flexibility. So I heard many different things in there, you know, around work, life, health, all of those areas around having the ability to flexibly and having the autonomy to manage your time to meet all of those different deadlines. So this is a really, really interesting definition of success, and knowing you and knowing that then is replicated across whether it's the isogenics or the health or the book or the project management or the consulting with the business managers. So all of those different areas, and that's where I guess the productivity really comes in, to be able to multitask and multi-gen in all of those different areas. So people watching, and I'm really fascinated about this as well, given that you have come from America and are obviously living in Australia now, you've come from a carny background and a very entrepreneurial one at that, where you were independent carnies, and work now in, you know, what can be a very straightforward and very conservative area in project management. With all of these different areas and that fascinating background, what sort of tips or suggestions do you have for other people where they can also be as adaptable and flexible to perhaps ask for that level of autonomy in their roles and the flexibility in their role, because they may not have had such great training as being a carny to keep asking for what they want?
That's an interesting question. I have an expression I use often, which is ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I say that a little bit jokingly, but I think we have to recognize that autonomy is not high on everyone's value list necessarily. Some people really value community much more maybe than I do, and so they'll have a different relationship to that. But in terms of getting what you want, that's an interesting one. There, for me personally, I've learned that I'm not always the best architect of my life. And sometimes what I think it is I want is not what I need. And so one of the things I've been practicing over the past few years is asking for what it is I think I want or need, and then just letting it go, not dictating the how, or I do the thing that's right in front of me that occurs to me, and I just see where that goes. My husband often will say, we're just having a conversation. And so now I think, when I think of things or I get inspired, I will reach out and I'll contact people. Whereas I used to really internalize that inspiration, and I would ask myself or tell myself all the reasons why I couldn't do that or I shouldn't. I've let go of should. I don't say that word much anymore. It's, you know, it's desire, it's passion. So those I think you've got to find that little nugget, what it is for you. Everyone has a different thing. And yeah, I think everyone has to find their approach.
I really love that whole concept of asking for forgiveness and doing what you want, and that really empowering and permissioning yourself to give a go and to have a go at things. And the other beautiful way that you expressed it there around, well, having a conversation about what if, or can I, or how do I, or whatever. So that whole, I remember I did a whole workshop a few years ago just around that whole idea that if you talked about something, it wasn't necessarily that you were going to definitely do it. It was actually just that you were talking about it and brainstorming it. And the whole shift in that energy and that dynamic was quite profound, I remember, because it did give all of that permissioning to ask stupid questions, to not know the answers, to be really just kind of floundering around, but in a way that it was okay not to know, and it was okay to be confused or lost. And I'm sure you've come across this where people really want you to have a clear question to ask to begin with, and you actually don't even know what question you're asking sometimes at that point.
Not at all. And it's one of the reasons I love working for technology startups specifically, or scale ups, because there is always an element of discovery in every product you're developing and every customer conversation you're having. And that not everyone's comfortable with that level of uncertainty. And I've had to really grow into that. That's been a real process for me, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, being comfortable with not knowing, with not understanding. It no longer really feels like a problem. Whereas many years, I've spent many of my past working years feeling as if I didn't know what I needed to know at the time. And one of the things I have learned is you generally know exactly what you need to know when you need to know it, not always before. And that's been, a really interesting part of my journey.
And I love that you find out what you need to know when you need to know. It's very similar to that expression about when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And I know you and I have spoken before about having support through coaching and having people that have been down similar journeys and similar pathways. So I love how you're describing it there, with how you needed to get used to that when you're around the startup and the tech startups, especially where they are ideas and they're testing things and they're failing and they're getting it wrong, and it's all part of that journey. But to get used to that as being the norm again, it is really like a very wonderful way to keep growing and developing that ability to keep making failure okay, and it's just another part of it.
It's actually a part of my upcoming book that I'm really attached to, is the wrong word, but it's a concept that I think is really important, because as someone who throughout my adult years always had a sense that I was vaguely doing something really wrong, that I wasn't doing life well, and I didn't feel particularly successful. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence. And one of the things we talk about in the FUI approach is that failure isn't feasible, because if you think of it as software development, and I draw that analogy because I spend a lot of time around technologists, agile software development asks us to consider chunking things down into manageable bites. It asks us to consider iterating and changing as quickly as possible. It asks us to deliver value quickly, and it asks us to continually improve and develop. And for example, if you undertake an FUI challenge, which readers will understand this more when they read the book, but you can't fail because you have the guidance of a coach who has a methodology to get you to your goal, which is linked to an event in a set time frame. And so you are developing by following those steps, by following that methodology. And therefore you are gaining experience, you're gaining skills, you're gaining comprehension. So even if the event doesn't happen, say, you have still gained all these things, and those experiences that education, that knowledge can never be taken away from you. It's adding to your cup. And so we have to look at what we've gained. We can't look at the gap, as Dan Sullivan would say. We have to look at what we've gained on the journey, not measure ourselves against where we wanted to go. It's a concept for me that's really changed my relationship to work, to family, to friendships.
And I really hear the profound difference that has made, and it's fascinating, I think, because what you're talking about, the words that I would have used would be like micro steps. So deciding that you want to do something and then taking the micro steps to actually achieve it. And so each time you take one of those steps, you've achieved something because you've completed that step.
Yes.
And I think the examples you were using around agile development, where the whole thing is then broken down into smaller bits. So you do have success at each point along the way.
Yes.
But at each point along the way, you've got different measures of what success is as well.
Perfectly said. And the other reason I like this approach is this is very different from optimism. This is different from positivity. This is not wishful thinking. We are taking steps. We are taking action. We are improving. And we start to feel that. And we start to feel it in our bodies. We start to feel it hormonally. Our attitude starts to change. And all of a sudden, this starts building a momentum. And the momentum, for me, creates an unbelievable sense of joy and fulfillment. Finishing a project, finishing an FUI project or a goal or a dream that you've had for either a lifetime, like it is for me to write a book, or for a short amount of time when I got inspired to join a bikini comp in 15 weeks last year at the age of 52. When you achieve that outrageous goal, it's euphoria, it's ecstasy, and it's ecstasy in the very traditional meaning of the word, which means an overwhelming feeling of joyful excitement or great happiness. And ecstasy, oddly, even means to stand outside of yourself, which again is what meditation asks us to do, which is what prayer asks us to do. So it's so funny that by having a project, having a target, a goal, a coach, you create an amazing ecstasy in your life. And I can't ask for a better life than that. I want my life to be full of that.
Wonderful. And I know from having followed your journey that your life is full of that. And
it is.
The one of the other interesting elements that you touched on was around how you can now see success, and that this at FUI and the way you described there, the project, target, goal, coach, that kind of mixture of tools of a mindset for success. Those tools and that structure that you're describing have been part of what, and this was why I wanted to kind of hone in on it, has been part of what has helped you to then see success in your life. So even if you've been outrageously successful before, you've not necessarily seen it. But now by describing this framework that you've captured and will be in your book, now by having this framework that you've gone, well, with this framework around it, I can now say that this is what success is. And I can also see beautifully described again that as you started to do it once, you then replicated, and the endorphins, the dopamine have all kicked in, and this state of ecstasy, similar to meditation, etc., that you achieved, you now have this formula for achieving it.
And that to me is the most exciting part. Something that started on a whim, which was entering a bikini competition or fitness competition, ended up just showing me, again, the architect of my life. I'm not the best one, right? It showed me what was required. And I had always previously been a great starter of projects, personal projects and ideas and hobbies and stuff, but I hadn't always been a great finisher. And it wasn't until I started to research this a bit more and figure out that one of the reasons for that was that I really wasn't particularly good at delayed gratification. I wasn't particularly good at holding myself accountable, which is where a coach, for whatever you want to achieve, is so, I call them actually a CMA, a coach, mentor, and accountability partner, because you will need different ones for different goals. But it's so critical because once I had that accountability, And I think there's a stat around it. Once you say your goal to somebody who can help you get there, your likelihood of success skyrockets to about 95%, right? So if you think about that time frame of 14 to 16 weeks, I can be doing this 3 to 4 times a year, which once again creates amazing momentum, great joy, and great excitement to live a life where I can consider for other people, they could live a life where they could do a couple of really amazing, heart-filling things a year. It really excites me, the opportunity to bring the AFUI approach to everybody. And I'm super excited to see what people are going to do with it.
I really can feel the passion and you can hear the excitement and the joy of where people can go with this framework that you're describing. I also think that it's really important. What you're describing isn't, go away and do this, and after 2 weeks you will have changed your life. I really love how you're talking about 14 to 16 weeks, because whatever the time frame that people look at and think about, the thing is that we all love to think that we like change, but as soon as we start to change, we hate it and resist it and sabotage it. I was watching Carol and Mrs. Fabulous thing about the sabotage archetype again yesterday. So we all very naturally have these human characteristics. Everybody has different things to different degrees. And so I love how you were talking as well about the amount of time that it can take, and maybe looking at doing 1 or 2 of these a year. And then obviously as you get better at it, just like an agile project, you can scale. You can scale.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. And that was a really wonderful thing about having a coach as well as a framework. Was I learned that when I started to look too far ahead, I would start to get a bit worried or concerned. It felt like too much, which again is talking into that micro steps that you mentioned. It's also, so for example, when training for the bikini comp, I wouldn't even look at my workouts until I was at the gym. I didn't even know. I would plan my food a day in advance, and that was pretty much it. And I've really adopted that strategy with the book as well, which has been written and produced in the same timeframes, using the same methodology, the same approach. So we've had 16 weeks from start to finish. And there were times when I just didn't feel like it was going to happen. But I've also realized that, self-doubt is part of the process, right? When you're doing something amazing, when you're doing something that you've really wanted to do that's important to you, you will get scared. You will get to that edge of comfortable, and you should have a goal that scares and excites you. Absolutely. Because that's the big, juicy, audacious goal that will get you out of bed in the morning. We all like to go to events or competitions or shows of some sort, except this time you're going to be in it. So it gives us something to look forward to, and it gives us something, we become interested in our own lives. We become the center of our own lives.
And I think that that's a really fabulous point that you raised there around the focus and the time and the intention. And I don't want to say just for women, but I know that women who traditionally may put others in the family group ahead of themselves, whether it's the children or the this or the that, as a way and as a method to start to place yourself as the center of your life, and understanding that the healthier and better your life is, the greater role model you are for your children, the greater partner you are, because you're happier with your partner, whoever that may be. So all of these endorphins that you were talking about and the ecstasy, they are quite contagious when you're actually focusing, and it sounds very strange, but that selfishness can actually be something where, by placing yourself first,
yes,
you're actually then supporting your family and your job and your whatever in a way that's actually much healthier.
You have nailed it, Michelle. You've gotten the concept completely, and it's absolutely fascinating. I was at dinner probably a couple of months ago with a large extended family, and I was sitting next to mostly women, and I said to them, "When was the last time you did something for yourself?" And they all went, "Oh." I said, "When was the last time you felt real joy?" I went, no, I don't even know. And I said, yeah, so, the best version of ourselves is not one dimensional. The best version of ourselves is not always in service to others. And that's something that's very important to me. And I think we've mentioned before, there will be some of the profits from the books will be going to children's home in India. It's really important to me to give back. But the irony is that we often have to put ourselves at the center of our lives and find that passion that we had when we were kids, find that interest, be inspired again in order to contribute to the overall health of those around us, our families, our communities, our coworkers. People pay attention to what other people are doing. We watch each other very closely, and we can tell the difference between someone who's really filled up and someone who's having a tough time. And I'm really hoping that this approach will help people fill up and be there for other people in a way that maybe they couldn't before.
Wow, what a heartfelt gift, Jen. I really feel how much of a gift it is that you're giving to people, men and women, with this framework and with this approach. And also, you reminded me, I haven't actually reflected for a while, but this show makes my heart sing. And, the guests, when they come on, without a doubt, all tell me about how much they've enjoyed being on the show. And
yes,
that positive feedback, you can't fake it. You can't pretend, oh, I'm just doing it, or I'm this, or I'm that. And when you actually follow those passions and place yourself first and make those passions important, it has such an impact on your life. And I know through the people that come on the show, on their lives as well, because they're sharing their tips for how to create the mindset for success. But they also know instinctively that they're then, through the medium of the show, helping others to find it in themselves.
Yeah. We all want to see each other thrive, I think. I know there's the bit of the tall poppy syndrome idea in Australia, but I firmly believe and have experienced very much in my life that people want to help. People want to see others succeed. They want to be of assistance, which is, one of the reasons why I argue that coaches, mentors, accountability partners don't need to be expensive or even cost anything at all. People like to share what they know. It makes us feel good.
It sure does. And you reminded me, I've just started mentoring somebody else in the project management space this week. So, and my last year's lovely lady has reached out to connect again, because even though the program's finished, these connections carry on. But I know we could carry on, and there's so much more I'd love to ask you about. But Jen, what's the best way that people can get hold of you?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. I use LinkedIn quite a bit. So you look for me on LinkedIn. I'm Jennifer Hill, and look for the one in Sydney.
Wonderful. Jennifer Hill and in Sydney. And my final question is one that might be interesting for somebody that grew up as a wandering carny in all over the US. But, you've also had an interesting journey in other stages. So if you were to give some advice to your younger self, what might that advice be?
I like this question. I think the advice I would give myself is not worry so much about what other people think, and find what it is that lights you up, and just have fun, gather experiences, talk to people.
I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful sentiment, not worrying about what other people think, having fun and just enjoying life. I know that with all the different things that people and the planet have been going through for a few years now, that going back to having fun, enjoying life, these precious, precious moments that we have, to be enjoyed. It's not to be a chore to have a life.
Absolutely.
So Jen, it's been such an absolute and incredible pleasure having you on the show. And if there was one last sentiment that you would want to share, given your incredible journey, what would be your final message for viewers?
I would remind them that they can continue to amaze themselves. And I think we make a lot of excuses. I think we say we're too old, we don't have this, we don't have that. We all have amazing resources available to us in this day and age. I don't know what they are for each one of the people listening, but I know that it is an incredible feeling to amaze yourself. And I encourage every one of them to have a go.
Wonderful. And I can really feel that again, that lovely sentiment about going out and amazing yourself, rediscovering that ecstasy in your life and that joy.
Absolutely.
And thank you so, so much for coming on the show today, Jen.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really nice to catch up again.
It's been such a joy for me too. And thank you, Jen, and thank you to all the viewers for coming and watching again. It's been such another joyful episode and another one for me to reflect on, and just feel so grateful that I can share through these amazing guests these insights into how you too can create a successful mindset. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.